Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The first thing I saw was a strange car in my driveway. The second thing I saw was my husband's hand on a woman's bare back through my kitchen window. And the third thing I heard before I ever opened my front door was him laughing and saying, "If she won't sign it, I can do it online. She never checks anything when she's traveling." I stood there in the dark with my suitcase still in my hand, staring through the glass at the life I thought I was coming home to. My flight had been cancelled because of a storm in Denver. I was supposed to spend the night in a hotel and come back the next morning. That was the plan everyone knew. My husband knew it. The airline knew it. Apparently, the woman in my kitchen knew it too. But I got lucky with a last-minute seat on a different route, landed just before midnight, and drove home in a rainstorm because all I wanted was my own bed. Instead, I found a silver Lexus in my driveway and my marriage ending on the other side of the window. Her heels were on my kitchen floor. His laptop was open on my table. And my name was on the paperwork between them. I didn't scream. I didn't run inside. I didn't give them the scene they deserved. I stepped backward into the shadows, pulled out my phone and started recording. My name is Lauren. I'm 36, and up until that night, I was the kind of person who believed routine meant safety. I had a steady job as a regional training manager for a medical software company. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well, and every few weeks I had to travel for 2 or 3 days at a time. My husband, Derek, used to joke that I was the one with the real career, while he worked on growing his small construction business. When we first got married, that line was funny. By the end, it wasn't a joke anymore. It was resentment. The house we lived in had belonged to my grandmother before she passed away. I inherited it 3 years before I met Derek. It was old, warm, and a little too big for 2 people, but it had history. Had bones. It had the kind of front porch people still sat on in the evening. Derek loved telling people we restored it together. What he usually left out was that the house was mine before he ever stepped into it. That mattered later. At the beginning, Derek was easy to love. He was charming, practical, good with his hands, and great at making other people feel taken care of. He built shelves for my office, fixed loose steps for neighbors without charging them, and kissed me on the forehead every morning like it was a ritual. But after about 4 years, something shifted. His business started struggling. Few contracts fell through. He hired too fast, trusted the wrong people, and then pretended none of it was happening. He got moodier, more defensive. He started treating every conversation about money like an accusation. Then came the small things. He stopped answering my calls right away when I traveled. He suddenly started going to the gym at odd hours, though his duffel bag never smelled like a gym. He became weirdly interested in my passwords, especially anything related to the house, our insurance, and our bank accounts. He pushed the idea of refinancing more than once. "Rates are still decent," he told me over dinner one night. "We could pull some equity, take pressure off for a while." I looked at him and said, "You mean take pressure off your business?" He smiled, but it was tight. "Our future, Lauren. It's all connected." That was the first time I felt that cold little warning in my stomach. Still, I didn't think of fair. Not yet. Thought stress. Pride. Maybe debt. I definitely didn't think another woman was walking around barefoot in my kitchen while my husband talked about forging my signature. That night, standing outside in the rain, I zoomed in with my phone camera and kept recording through the side window. I saw enough in 3 minutes to change everything. The woman was younger than me, maybe late 20s, dark hair, expensive coat tossed over one of my dining chairs. I recognized her after a second. Usa. She worked part-time in Derek's office. I'd met her twice. Once at a company barbecue. Once when she dropped off paperwork and called me Mrs. Lauren like she didn't know my name. Now she was leaning against my counter in one of my wine glasses. Derek had a stack of documents spread out on the table. I could clearly see the top page because the pendant light was bright over the island. Home equity application. My name typed neatly in the signature field. I kept recording while my heart pounded so hard it made my hands shake. Tessa asked, "Are you sure she won't notice?" Derek gave this smug little laugh I will never forget. She signs things from airports, hotels, Ubers. Half the time she doesn't even read them. I'll tell her it's insurance renewal or tax stuff. Then he kissed her. Not quick. Not guilty. Comfortable. Practiced. That hurt more than I expected. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was ordinary. It looked like something they'd done 100 times. I should have walked in then. I know that's what most people imagine. The dramatic entrance, the yelling, the throwing things. But anger is loud, and loud people make mistakes. So I backed away, got in my car and parked down the street. Then I did the smartest thing I have ever done in my life. I opened my home security app. A year earlier, after a break-in on the next block, I had installed cameras around the property. Derek complained they were excessive. Kept them anyway. He was so uninterested in anything technical that he never bothered learning how the system worked. From my phone, I saved the live footage from the driveway, porch, kitchen entry and backyard door. At 12:14 a.m., Tessa's car arrived. At 12:21, Derek met her at the side entrance. At 1:07 a.m., the kitchen footage caught him turning the laptop toward her and pointing at the signature line. At 1:12 they kissed. At 2:03 they disappeared upstairs. That timestamp almost made me throw up. But instead I saved everything to cloud storage and drove to a hotel 20 minutes away. I didn't sleep. I made a list. By 8:30 the next morning, I was sitting in my friend Monica's law office with a printed copy of my house deed, my bank statements, screenshots from the cameras, and the video from my phone. Monica watched the clip once, slowly lowered her glasses and said, "Okay. First, breathe. Second, do not confront him yet." I wasn't going to. "Good," she said. "Because if he's willing to fake your signature, he's already thinking like someone who believes you won't fight back." That sentence snapped something into place for me. He didn't just betray me. He underestimated me. Monica helped me move fast. We contacted the bank tied to the home equity inquiry and flagged the application as potentially fraudulent. I changed every password he might know. I opened a new personal account. I froze my credit. We reviewed property records and confirmed exactly what I already suspected. The house was solely mine. Not joint. Not shared. Then I went one step further. I called Derek's bookkeeper. Not to accuse. Just to ask a few careful questions. By lunchtime, I knew his business debt was far worse than he'd admitted. There were overdue vendor payments, a maxed-out business line of credit, and one payroll issue he had somehow hidden from me for months. Tessa, it turned out, wasn't just sleeping with him. She'd also been helping him shuffle paperwork and cover holes. That gave me something better than heartbreak. Gave me leverage. I went home that afternoon while they were both gone. Derek had texted me around 9 that morning. "Still stuck in Denver? Miss you." I stared at that message for a full minute before replying. "Yeah. Rebooked for tomorrow." Then I walked into my own house like a forensic investigator. Her earring was under the guest bathroom sink. One of my towels was damp upstairs. And on Derek's office desk, I found an envelope with printed loan documents and sticky notes marking where L needed to sign. I photographed everything. I packed one suitcase of his clothes and put it in the garage. Then I waited. The confrontation happened 2 nights later, and it happened exactly where Derek thought he had the advantage. At my dining table in my house, with his confidence doing half the work for him. He had invited me to sit down after dinner because he wanted to go over a few grown-up financial decisions. That's how he put it. Grown-up. Like I was the child in the room. I came in calm, carrying a folder and my laptop. He had papers laid out already, smiling like he was finally getting his way. "Good timing," he said. "If you sign tonight, I can get this moving Monday." I sat across from him and folded my hands. "Before I sign anything, I want to ask you something." He leaned back. "Sure. Who drives the silver Lexus?" It was the smallest pause. Barely a second. Then he shrugged. "No idea." "Why?" I nodded like I believed him, opened my laptop, and turned the screen toward him. The first frame was the driveway camera. Tessa's car. Timestamp visible. His face changed immediately. Clicked again. Now the kitchen window video. His hand on her waist. His voice saying, "If she won't sign it, I can do it online." He went pale. "Lauren." I raised a hand. "Don't insult me by improvising." For the first time in years he looked scared. "It's not what it sounds like." I almost laughed. "It sounds like adultery and fraud, Derek. What secret third option did you have in mind?" He pushed back from the table. "I was under pressure." "No," I said quietly. "You were dishonest under pressure. That's different." Then he did what people like him always do when the lie collapses. He reached for blame. "You were never here," he snapped. "You were always traveling, always working, always acting like this house was yours and I was lucky to be in it." I held his gaze. "This house was mine," I said. "That's what's been bothering you all along." He opened his mouth, then closed it. I slid the folder across the table. Inside were printed stills from the security footage, notice from the bank confirming the fraud alert, and divorce papers Monica had filed that afternoon. "What is this?" he asked, but his voice had already broken. "It's you moving out tonight." He stared at me. "You can't do that." I said, "Actually I can." Right then the doorbell rang. He looked confused. I stood, walked to the front door and opened it. Monica stepped in first. Behind her was a locksmith with new deadbolts in a box. Derek looked from her to me like the room had tilted under him. "You planned this," he said. I looked him dead in the eye. "No, you planned it. I just finished it." He spent the next 20 minutes cycling through every version of panic. Apology, anger, bargaining, shame. Then anger again. He said Tessa meant nothing. He said the loan was temporary. He said he was going to tell me everything. He said I was overreacting. He said I was cruel. I didn't argue. I just watched him pack. He called Tessa at one point right there in front of me. She didn't answer. Of course she didn't. Women like that love confidence. They disappear when all that's left is a man with a suitcase and no address. The fallout was ugly, but not dramatic in the way movies make it. It was quieter, more satisfying. The bank opened a fraud review. Derek's business unraveled within a few months after I refused to let him bury his debt in my property. 2 subcontractors sued him. Tessa left the company shortly after. I heard later she moved in with him for about 6 weeks before she got tired of funding a fantasy that wasn't paying off. Our mutual friends split exactly the way people always do when truth becomes inconvenient. Some went silent. Some came back and admitted they'd noticed things but didn't want to get involved. A couple surprised me by standing firmly on my side. The best part wasn't watching Derek lose things. It was watching myself stop losing myself. I repainted the kitchen. Changed the locks. I replaced the dining table because I was tired of looking at the one where he laid out paperwork with my forged name on it. I planted lavender by the front walk because my grandmother loved it and the old bushes had died while I was busy saving a marriage that didn't deserve saving. And every time I pulled into that driveway after that, I felt peace instead of dread. That strange car turned out to be the kindest warning I never asked for. If my flight hadn't been cancelled, I might have signed those papers a week later from some airport lounge, half distracted, trusting the wrong man one more time. Instead I came home early. I saw everything. And I left that marriage with my dignity intact, my house protected, and my eyes wide open. Some people think betrayal destroys you. Sometimes it does. But sometimes it introduces you to the version of yourself that finally stops accepting less than honesty. That night, I stood in the rain outside my own house and listened to my old life falling apart. I just didn't realize yet that it was making room for a better one. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.